Hello and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live. Happy to have you today. My name is Kim Lantis, broadcasting live from Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Joining me today is my teammate, America Guerrero, logging in, signing in, airing from Mexico City. Hey, America.
Hey, Kim. Hey,
How's it going?
everybody.
It's Girls' Day today. We're
It's
going to be
Girls' Day.
co-hosting together, and we'll see how this one goes. It'll be fun. And of course, I'm happy to introduce today's guest, who is Adam Gordon, an instructor. I think an edutainer is the preferred term, from IT Pro TV. We're happy to have you here today, Adam.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. We were kind of joking backstage, and this feels nostalgic to me. 1990s Home Improvement, Tim the Toolman Taylor with his Tool Time show, and I get this vibe with IT Pro TV, only of course more timely for today's day and age. So I'm excited to see what you guys are all about. But before we get into IT Pro TV, I would like to get to know you a bit better, Adam. If you could please just tell us a bit more about yourself, your background, who you are, what makes you tick.
Absolutely. So, I've been working in what we think of as IT today, in what most people call the IT sector, for the better part of 40 years now. I've been doing this since before we referred to most of the technology we'll probably talk about.
Since I was literally in diapers and America was a twinkle.
Somewhere.
Right. So I've been doing this a long, long time. You can't tell because I have a lot of hair and it's all dark. It used to be anyway, before I started doing this. But I've been doing this for a long time. I split my time and have over the multiple decades of my career. Roughly about half my time in any given year is spent as a consultant, hands-on in the field. I work for Fortune 500 companies all over the world as an on-call virtual resource. I do a lot of work with governments and military. I specialize in security and infrastructure, anything having to do with all those kind of things. I'm an auditor. I do a lot of security audit work. And I'm also a teacher, and I have been for decades. And I'm proud to say I'm an educator, and I spend about half my time over the course of any given year teaching, whether it's in person, although we haven't been doing very much of that the last couple of years because of this little global pandemic thing we've all been going through. But I do, until very recently anyway, was teaching in person. And I work for all sorts of companies, both as a hired resource to teach their teams internally. I also get the opportunity and have the privilege of teaching broadly. The technology has changed a lot since I started doing this, and we did what was in the day called traditional instructor-led training, right? Me in a classroom, you as a student, traditional education model we're probably all familiar with. But I was one of the few people early on that pioneered online learning and was doing online training very early on, and I've been doing it for the better part probably of 20 years now, maybe even a little longer. And so I spend a lot of my time wherever I happen to be in the world, because I travel a great deal for my job, being able to spend time connecting on platforms like this, talking with interesting people like both of you, and getting to talk about all sorts of really cool topics. And that's what I get to, unfortunately, from my perspective, I get to spend very much time doing. I love what I do, and I get to do my dream job. I get to teach and play with cool technology and solve people's problems. It's never boring, and I never wake up wondering what I'm going to do today that's different than yesterday, because my job is always different no matter what I do.
I love it. I love it. Yes, I love it's not very many of people you hear say, fortunately, I get to. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great perspective, right? There's a lot of I have to, and you get to, which I think is spectacular. So over the course of this 40 years, you've finally come and you've landed at IT Pro TV. Share a little bit about who you are as a company, what it is that you do.
Sure. So, IT Pro TV has been around as a separate company because we recently were merged and acquired. Now we're part of a much broader family of companies under the banner of ACI Learning, which is our global company.
Congratulations.
But thank you very much. But the merger's been just over a year now, and IT Pro TV as a separate entity prior to the merger was one of the early pioneers in not just the online learning space, because online learning's been happening for a long, long time, but we take a very different approach to online learning. We don't use traditional methods, so you don't just hear a disembodied voice talking over PowerPoints when you see, flat one-dimensional e-learning, which is unfortunately often how much of e-learning has been done until very recently. the people that founded our company and the core group of on-screen talent, as you referred to me, as you introduced me, we call ourselves edutainers because we really do try to entertain as well as teach. And that core group of people initially came out of a shared background with training that was multi-decades long. We all worked for, among other companies, New Horizons, one of the largest computer training companies in the world. And we had multiple experiences doing training in a variety of formats. And the vision of the company when it was founded was to come up with innovative, engaging, and really exciting ways to teach people, but to do so and give them that experience of being in an in-person classroom, but to do so online, right? In either synchronous or asynchronous formats, depending on whether it was live or pre-recorded. And so we use a two-person facilitated format. So you get to see myself, let's say hypothetically, along with maybe one of you as a host, and we're in a studio. It's more like a talk show than it is actually a training experience. And we use a smaller 20-minute format for our episodes. So you're not being overwhelmed with a huge amount of learning all at once. It's more bite-sized and consumable. And it is all recorded in state-of-the-art studios. And as a result of that, it has a really polished look and feel. We use a subscription model, so it's essentially very similar, right, to Netflix in the sense that you pay a monthly fee. You can stream any and all of our content out of our library, thousands, tens of thousands of episodes at this point, and thousands of hours of content across multiple verticals and technology stacks. And post-acquisition, post our merger into the ACI Learning family, we have additional brands. We have AuditProTV, which is focused on the IT audit space. And we have Health Pro, which is focused on healthcare and security and IT infrastructure there. So we do a lot of things, and we do it globally. It's available 24/7, 365, and we just have a lot of fun.
All right, it sounds like it. So you already mentioned security, I think a couple of times now, which is where your specialty, what your background is, and specifically the topic that was chosen for today. America, what is today's topic?
Yes, so is preparing for today's security landscape. IT and security in today's dynamic and highly charged operational landscape, preparing the next generation of professionals to fill key roles. Really interesting. So please, Adam, could you tell us why did you choose this topic? Why is it relevant for today's show?
Absolutely. I think it's not just relevant for today's show, right? It's highly relevant, right? And I think it's relevant for many reasons. But when you look at the landscape of IT professionals today, people that are perhaps just starting out in their careers. So they're in their 20s, they're looking to either get out of college or perhaps have gone to a vocational school, or maybe not even gone beyond high school because maybe they are working and doing a variety of things and learning through different alternate paths. But a lot of people are very interested in IT, perhaps as a subset interested in IT security, what we call cybersecurity today. And there's a really big need for those professionals. We keep hearing about the fact that there's all these jobs that are going underfilled or unfilled at all, right, in this space globally, not just in any one country, in Mexico, certainly in the United States and around the world. And I think it's a very timely topic because we seem to have a pipeline problem, right? We seem to have an issue where people that are looking to get into our field, whether it's IT broadly or cybersecurity as a subset within IT, are struggling. They're not quite sure how to do that. How do I get the attention of hiring managers? How do I craft and build a resume that tells my story, right? Makes me an attractive candidate and allows me to communicate effectively the skills I have and the experience I can bring, maybe vast, maybe limited, to a job. And how do I become that candidate that you want to hire, right, as a business? And there's a really big significant gap between people's idea of what they can get a job doing and maybe the hype we hear around the job issues and the lack of job fulfillment. People aren't taking those spots. And the actuality of the fact that, we actually have a lopsided problem. We have a lot of really talented people that want to do the jobs, but we have an old hiring model, kind of a Byzantine thought process that corporations are using and saying, well, we'll do the traditional thing. We'll write a job description. We'll use a bunch of keywords and we'll get people to submit resumes. And if those keywords match, maybe we'll interview them. And the problem is that there's so many people and it's not really an in-person process anymore, right? If you think about it, even before COVID, before the global pandemic, it was very difficult to have an in-person, face-to-face conversation with somebody. because
Right.
most things are done remotely. And to get someone's attention, to actually have them think that you're more than just a piece of paper and a few words that may or may not tell a compelling story, has proved to be a really significant challenge. So I think talking about why we're having issues and how we can help people to be successful and find that entry point is a really important thing to be doing today.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is cybersecurity or just IT security in general a really great entry point? I mean, I kind of think in my mind it's one of those very critical, very important pieces of tech. And because of that, but it has maybe lost some of its lackluster, right? It's not the thing that people want to be into, right? Even as you call yourselves edutainers, and we've got, social media and all these kind of quote unquote fun, flashy things. How would you encourage, the people who are studying, who are getting into this space, to pay attention to things like security or other things that might not be as, on the forefront of a desire, let's say? Get them to say, I get to do this rather than I have to do this.
Sure. So, security touches all of us every day. We don't always think about it, but all of us probably have at least one smart device in our life, right? Whether it's an IoT, an Internet of Things connected device, some sort of appliance, right, that might be connected to the internet that you may have at home, whether it's a mobile device or your handheld smartphone, whatever brand you favor, right, whether it's Apple or Android or whatever the case may be. And certainly we have laptops, we have tablets, and we have a variety of tech embedded in all sorts of things like cars and all sorts of things that we interact with all the time. And so as a result, security is one of those things that has become so commonplace, so ubiquitous. Tech in general, right? IT, what we think of as tech, it's become so commonplace, so ubiquitous that it is something I think that a lot of us tend to just take for granted, to your point. And I think we don't always think about the fact that there are all these things, miraculous things, right? Things that people that are from, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years ago, looking ahead to what is now the future of that world today, would have said, there's no way you're going to tell me that I'm going to have essentially a handheld computer that I could use as a phone that's going to allow me to do all sorts of stuff. And all I have to do is say I have an app, and I click the app, and all of a sudden I can do anything. I need a huge computer and a big room and lots of infrastructure to do that, if I could even do that at all. I mean, I remember coming out of high school, show you how old I am, going into college when computers, personal computers, were just becoming something that were commercialized and in the retail space that you could buy, but you had to be somebody who had means. I mean, back then, an initial Apple computer, right, one of the very first Apple personal computers, cost you thousands of dollars, right, to buy and own. And
I can remember how big of a deal it was to get one at home, and all I would play is Oregon Trail and Reader Rabbit.
It was a huge thing. I was in college before that actually happened, to give you a sense of how old I am. And I went through all the way into college working on typewriters and word processors, which were kind of the precursors, right? Typewriters, a little bit of memory, were precursors to what we think of today as modern, basically laptops or desktop computers. And so as a result, I grew up in a world where computers weren't really the thing. Technology wasn't what we think of it as being today. We had payphones. You wanted to make a call, you went and found a box somewhere on a corner, you put money into it, and you stood there and you made a phone call, right? We didn't carry phones around with us. I was an adult professionally working in the music industry and as a consultant before I even had one of the very first cell phones. So, the reality is technology is contextual. It's timely to what we do in the place that we live and the time we live in. But I think today the challenge with security is not that maybe people don't necessarily pay attention to it or take it seriously or maybe don't engage with it, but I think we've unfortunately made it very complicated for the average person to really feel comfortable understanding what is possible, as opposed to the scary things we tell them are going to happen, right? And the average person sitting, let's say, maybe in a public area using Wi-Fi, whether it's in a hotel, maybe it's at a Starbucks or a restaurant or at a resort or wherever they are, just looking to connect to the world, and doing so is probably on average really of almost no interest to a bad actor, right? I mean, the likelihood of you getting attacked on a public Wi-Fi network because you're just going about your day, surfing the web, looking at Amazon, checking the weather, whatever you're doing on your phone or your computer, is very, very small. I'm not suggesting it couldn't happen. We all know it can. But I'm suggesting that the likelihood of it happening to you randomly at any given moment in time is incredibly small. And because of that, the people that know enough to know that will take precautions. We hear time and again, we'll use, don't use public Wi-Fi if you can avoid it, use secured networks. But if you have to use public Wi-Fi, use a VPN. Pretty common thing we often hear people talk about. Most people will hear that and say, well, okay, I may or may not be comfortable doing that for a lot of reasons, but I know it's probably a good idea if I know a little bit about technology. But then you have people that are a little bit older, that may not be as comfortable with technology, but have smart devices, and they don't know what a VPN is, and they're not interested in using one, and they're scared every time they touch their device, let alone the reality of whether they can secure it or not. I'm talking clearly, right, about maybe grandparents, parents, right, aunts, uncles, people that are slightly older than us, but are still interacting with our world and our technology. I have this conversation with my mother all the time. I had it with my grandparents when they were alive. And the reality is they marvel at what I do and the things I tell them I do for companies and the technology I use, but they're first ones to admit they don't understand it and they're not very comfortable with it. And I think the mistake we make, unfortunately, individually and collectively around security, is that we let others have the narrative and have the control over what that means for us. We don't take the time to find out in a very simple, very easily accessible way what the 2 or 3 really important things are we should do to keep ourselves secure. And I think if we were doing those things, all of us individually and collectively, I think the world would be a much safer place. We'd see a lot less of the kinds of things that really trouble all of us, right? Malware being sent to you through an email, right? Or you being phished, right? As we talk about where people are soliciting you unsolicited through emails and things like that. We would educate everybody and say, look, if you get email from a stranger, I was growing up, right? When I grew up, stranger danger, right? If you saw a stranger, they don't have candy, they don't have good stuff. You just don't talk to strangers. I mean, when I was a kid, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, when I grew up, you could go out and play outside all day, right? Shocking for those of you that may be growing up today, but we would actually go outside. We would play. We didn't have computers. We didn't sit and play video games all day. You went to arcades when you wanted to play a video game. And today, right, it's very different. I mean, I would be kicked out of the house and my mother said, hey, go find your friends. I don't want to see you back till dinner time, right? I don't care what you do. Just don't be here underfoot. And you go run around and you would just basically be unsupervised all day. But you were told, hey, listen, you're responsible for yourself, act appropriately. Don't get into someone's car if you don't know who they are. I'm not sending a stranger to come find you. So don't get into someone's car. Don't talk to strangers and be smart, right? We trust you, but don't act like an idiot and you'll be fine. Today, we seem to have lost that whole idea. Like people don't understand that talking to strangers is a good idea. No, it's a very bad idea. Nobody anywhere in the world is going to suddenly die and leave you $1 million that you've never met or never heard of. And you're not related to those people. I don't care what they tell you. As a result, you're never going to get notified by email that you suddenly have become rich. So, the reality of just common sense seems to be missing from the dialogue. And I think if we can find our way back to that narrative, I think everybody's going to be a lot safer, more secure, and ultimately probably will have a better place.
With knowledge, ITProTV and the type of education that you're dealing with is part of the classes and the things you've mentioned, this common sense kind of portion, the very basics, not just of the scary technology, but then also can you go all the way to the other side of this deep and intense high tech knowledge that's actually like a specialty? How is it that you are actually going about preparing for this next generation of professionals? Do you start at that common sense and then move up? Is this something that's available to anyone, no matter where you are in that process, that you can easily kind of just jump in and find the type of education that you're looking for?
So the way we do it is probably in many respects traditional in the sense that, we do have learning paths, right? What you're describing is kind of a, do you have a way in which we can say I'm starting as a beginner and then I can move through intermediate and ultimately into advanced areas as a course of study, like you would get in school or in college, right? If you pursue a degree. So we don't do degrees, let me be clear, we're not an accredited institution, but we do have learning paths. We do help people understand how to learn and what order things may make sense in as part of the way we structure our material. But we provide learning and access to learning 24/7, 365 globally. It's available to anybody who has an internet connection because we are a streamed service. So you can access us using a web browser on anything from a handheld smart device to a tablet, a desktop, a server, anything like that that has a web browser, right? So you can see us anywhere. And as long as you have decent internet, and I understand not everybody does have good, reliable internet. I do understand that. But assuming that you are in an area that has consistent and somewhat reliable internet, you could access us. And so it's very easy and it's available. And it's self-paced learning. You get to learn on your time using a platform like ITProTV because you don't have to show up for an in-person live course where your professor, right, says, oh, you were late, I'm going to lock the door and not let you in, right? No, we're there all the time whenever you want to learn. You just tune in like watching TV. And you can obviously then stream us like Hulu, like Netflix, like any of that. So we do provide that. We do provide very structured curriculums that align with, in the case of certification-based training, align with certifications from Microsoft, from Cisco, from VMware, from all the big technology vendors, right, in the technology world. So we do training for those things. We also provide soft skills training. So, hey, I'm just starting out and I need to learn how to speak and to be able to communicate effectively. So when I go in interviews, I want to be able to present well. Well, we have soft skills training that provides that kind of capability as well. We do very deep tech training. So somebody like me who has decades of experience working in the industry, in the world, I build data centers for companies for a living. I secure them. I do penetration testing. I hack people's companies for a living to understand where their weaknesses are and help them defend against them. You would call that red team activity, right, in the language or parlance of security. I also operate on the blue team. I defend. I show people how to stop that. So,
now we have a really better understanding of what you get to do versus what you have to do. Like, I get to pretend I'm evil.
This is exactly. So, you know, I do have a mini me. It's off to the side. You can't see him, but I do have that, you know, that kind of fun. I get to do what I think of and what probably most IT professionals would say is probably their dream job. I get to do all these things that sometimes you only get to do a very small percentage of when you work for a traditional company managing IT infrastructure. I get to do all the stuff you do and a whole bunch more. And I also get to teach you how to do all those things that you want to know how to do, but maybe never were able to given the opportunity or able to do. And I do that across multiple verticals and multiple vendor platforms. So I work on VMware, I work in and on Microsoft and Azure, in AWS, in Google Cloud. I work for all these companies and I work as a professional who can teach you and help you to understand those technologies. But we also do things like security awareness training, right, for individuals and companies. So what are those basic steps that we were suggesting a few minutes ago might be helpful, whether you're a younger person just starting out needing to understand the basics of how to interact in the digital world today. What is the metaverse and how do I interact with it and how do I secure it? Or maybe you're an older person, right, who just wants to check email and maybe see pictures of your grandkids. You're not really worried about all that other stuff. You know, we have security awareness training and skills that will help those people. And they're all available on our platform. Some of that is available for free, right? We actually give out certain of our content for free, so you don't have to be a member to watch some of that content, especially things like security awareness. And then we also, as I said, have a subscription model where for a small fee, you can have a membership where you get access to the entire library, and for a slightly higher fee, you get all that, plus you get hands-on practical lab environments that are virtual.
Nice.
Where you can actually practice those skills, and you get test review questions if you're looking to gain certifications to build your career path so that you can actually certify and gather skills. So we have a lot of different offerings depending on what you may need at any point in your career.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm a university student right now. I'm working on getting that administration degree. But before working here in dojo.live, I didn't have like that big picture about metaverse, for example, technology itself. So my students, my studentmates are that they are like in this same position and they would like to learn more about it. And I see that you have your online courses. Could you tell me which is the trend, which is the category that students prefer to study the most? Or if you have like a basic level of technology like me, with which category would you start?
So it's a great question, America, and it depends, right? Because it's kind of two questions in one, right? What is that category that maybe people that have some knowledge might be interested in pursuing. And then, what are those areas where people that are starting out, maybe very minimal knowledge, might be interested in pursuing? So I think part of it is driven by whether you're looking to be a professional, an IT professional in the IT industry. And if you are, you're looking to gather skills, but also certifications, because the reality is, whether we like it or not today, and there's a debate in our industry right now, right, about whether or not certifications are still relevant. And if they are, should we be pursuing them and using them as a measuring stick to verify whether or not somebody has skills and therefore can be employable, or whether real world experience and skills, but without a certification, are equal to, if not perhaps better than, certifications. And we can use those, and it's not clear, right? Because we have a lot of people that are very adamant about one or the other position. There's not a lot of room in the middle right now. But if you're looking to certify, then it really just depends on where you're starting from. If you're just starting out, you would typically pursue certifications that what we would call, and I don't mean this negatively when I say entry level, but we would call them entry level certifications. You have to start somewhere, and that path begins in a very well-defined place. And those will be from CompTIA. CompTIA is the umbrella organization globally that provides a lot of those entry level and early and mid-level credentials in your career in IT and in security. And so credentials and certifications like A+, which is hands-on hardware and knowledge about how to fix, build, and troubleshoot computers, as well as networking and security. All the CompTIA certifications have a plus, literally a plus sign at the end. So Network Plus, Security Plus, those are entry-level credentials and certifications. So those are the kind of things, America, you may pursue if you wanted to go into technology, right, hypothetically. And then, as you get higher up, as you become a little bit more skilled and maybe have a couple of years experience working maybe on a help desk or a service desk somewhere as a technician, maybe a troubleshooter, right, an administrator, and you want to get a little bit more skills and, of course, maybe make some more money right along the way, always very important, then you're going to look to maybe move into cloud and cloud skills. So you're going to want to get certified maybe in Microsoft's platform, Azure, maybe in Amazon's platform, AWS, or Google's platform, what we call the GCP, the Google Cloud Platform. We offer training and certification-based, certification-aligned training in all of those platforms. And you may also want to learn about virtualization, which is really the underlying technology that makes the cloud possible. So technology vendors like VMware would be good to be aligned with, and we offer training there, and you can get certified in that. And then you might want to go from there into security, right? Do the kind of stuff I do ultimately. And we offer all sorts of training and certification aligned training there. So it really just depends. But the nice thing about learning, right, is that you don't have to stop learning at any point in time, right? We used to say, well, you went to school, maybe now America, based on what you're saying, I'm in university. And, when I graduate, I'm in my mid-20s maybe or so, typically when I graduate university. And I've got my degree, right? Maybe my BA or BS, if you don't pursue a master's or a doctorate. And I'm good. I'm going to go out in the workforce. And I don't have to worry about learning and going back to school. Boy, if we only knew how silly that was, right? Because you don't realize how good you have it in school until you actually get out in the world and start to work. I'm fortunate. I was a university professor. I've taught at universities. And I have academic credentials, and I actually was a formal academic before I decided to do what I do in teaching in the private sector, doing the kind of things I do today. And I never stopped learning and never stopped being associated with school in the 40 or so years I've been doing this.
Philosophy.
I'm incredibly fortunate, but most people look at me and go, well, how can you make a living doing nothing but acquiring certifications and teaching? Well, I make a really good living doing what I do. I make a better living than most people I know, but I get to have a lot of fun doing it along the way because early on, I realized something, right? When I was getting out of school and I got my undergraduate degree before I went and got my master's and became a professor and did all that, I realized that, education is an entry point. It's a gateway to enable you to do the things you want to do in life. And everybody should know that and understand that, but it's not an end point. And that's where most people, unfortunately, make that mistake. They stop thinking learning is relevant and important to them. And they go to their job and they say, well, the job will teach me the things I need to know that I don't already know from school, and I'll be okay. It's a very boring and kind of really, unfortunately, unchallenging existence when all you do is you're taught, okay, here's how you file a report. Here's how you print a document. Here's how you write an email. wow, that's all there is to learning. I don't have to learn anything anymore. It becomes really, unfortunately, very unchallenging. And I think people lose their direction, their drive, and therefore their need to understand the world around them if they're not challenged. And I think that's why education is so important for lifelong learning.
Of course. So, as you have mentioned that you have this educational philosophy, always teaching, always learning. How is what would you tell us about the culture of IT Pro TV as we approach the final minutes of the conversation? What could you share with us?
So, our corporate culture, essentially, America, is what you're asking about. What is it like to be a member of our community, our family here at IT Pro TV, and more broadly, ACI Learning, our parent company. And it is exactly what I just described to you. I get to go to work every day, and I get to have fun and solve really challenging problems and help a bunch of people that want to learn about those technologies globally do those things. I show up to work every day. You always see me from like the chest up right now. I'm wearing a long sleeve polo logo shirt. I'm in a pair of jeans. I'm wearing socks. I don't have shoes on. This is how I go to work every day. I'm sitting in a state-of-the-art production studio, a TV studio in Gainesville, Florida, where our corporate studios are located, right down the road from the University of Florida, from UF. And I get to go to work and look like I'm still going to college, right? I walk around the studio all day without shoes on. And, it's a comfortable, relaxed atmosphere. And I get to go to work. You haven't seen this, but I get to go to work, and this is what I look like, right? If you want to really see me, right? This is me, right? I look like I belong in the music industry.
How much do those bracelets weigh?
A lot, right? And I have earrings, right? You can see.
I can see.
I have a beard, and this is how I go to work. This is how I've looked, by the way, since I was 15. I've been able to work my entire professional life looking like this, except my hair was much darker and I had more of it back then. But the reality is, this is what I've been able to look like my entire professional career. I've spoken at the United Nations. I consult with governments. I have, done all sorts of things that you would look at me and go, there's absolutely no way, right? The only thing I'm missing is tattoos, right? That's the only thing I don't have. But the reality is, this is where we are as a company. This is our culture. We're a group of really interesting individuals that get together every day with one purpose, one mission, to make learning fun and to communicate that passion to everybody we touch as one of our members. We don't call the people that trust us and do business with us and invest in our platform customers. We call them members because we take our commitment to them and their success so seriously that we want them to be part of our community and our culture. And we try to invest that in them when we get the opportunity to teach them. And that's what it's like to work here.
Oh, amazing.
Yes,
Do you
yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay if you have another question. I'm just
shoot.
No, it's okay. I was just imagining like my future and everything. So just go ahead, Kim.
Yeah. So expect a resume from America at IT Pro TV there, Adam.
We're always looking for people, right? Not trying to poach. You're saying we're always looking for people.
Perfect. So Adam, we actually come to the final moments of our show today. Thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure to get to meet you, to learn from you, to be energized by you. And it's a really high note to end our week, right? This is actually the last show of the week. We will not have any live shows tomorrow on Thursday, but you could probably expect a restream. And do, of course, catch us on Monday as we recap Adam's show and yesterday's show and tell you what we're doing next week. Again, please hold on for just a minute as we go off air, Adam. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Pleasure spending time with you.